Hello everybody. My name is Eija-Leena Koponen and I work as an AI lead at SomeBuddy. At SomeBuddy we want to enable access to justice through AI, and today I'm gonna tell you how. Before telling you exactly how we are using machine learning in our systems, I'm just gonna briefly introduce you to the topic. I guess most of you guys use social media every day. But did you know that according to Pew Research on 2018, 59% of social media users have been cyberbullied or harassed online? I recently came across with another research focusing on Africa. So 28% of African female have encountered gender-based harassment online. The most frequent places in Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram. I guess you have heard about social media platforms tackling these issues with moderators and ability to report stuff or some other features. There are also increasing amount of tools that will prohibit you to write stuff that is, for example, insulting, and quite a lot of technologies trying to tackle this problem. We at SomeBuddy wanted to take the stance of the victim and look at the victim side, so work in the area where the milk has already spilled. And we wanted to create a solution to help with that. So how does somebody Eija then help? Let's say we have Alex, 13-year-old boy going to school, and he is at the gym class. His friends start to fool around, taking pictures after the gym class in the shower, and then one of the pictures goes viral. Alex is in great distress. His personal intimate images going around in Snapchat or in WhatsApp, and you don't even know where really. But luckily, Alex remembers somebody, goes to the web app and starts to tell his story. There's an interviewer, automatic interviewer, asking questions and asking only those questions that are relevant for making the legal assessment and getting the needed information. Then Alex closes the case, he's ready, he has tell everything, and our lawyers and psychologists start to work. They have 3 different components of machine learning with their help: crime detector, optimal response library, and trauma detector, of which I'm going to tell you later. And then they're compiling a response to Alex. This response just to Alex's case. What should Alex do with his friends? What is his rights? Was this a crime? And how Alex can survive this. He receives the answer to the same app and can share it to his parents, for example. The answer, we call it as a survival kit, is all you need in one kind of a kit. There is legal assessment, as I told you. There is psychological first aid. There are tips for social media in order to prohibit some of these things later on. And then there is a clear action plan, what you would need to do in order to stop it or how to proceed. SomeBuddy helps kids and adults who have been harassed online. We have created an interviewer that can help small person as 8-year-old to the 80-year-old person. 28% of kids that have been using SomeBuddy have been victims of sexual crimes, and SomeBuddy has been the only source for help that they have found. We would want to give this opportunity to get the help for all the social media users in the world, and with the AI tools we are able to do that. As you can see, there were quite many domain expertise needed to make that survival kit for Alex. There was a lawyer, there was a psychologist, and there was expertise in social media rules and behavior. So what we want to do is to automate that cross-domain team through AI, so that somebody can help as many as possible. So what we did when we began this work in 2017 was to create the framework. So we needed to combine all these expertise fields together to a framework where we can create data and solve the problem. Creating the framework required quite a lot of work, lots of iterations, and lots of research. It was done in many phases, starting with the law and then applying it to the cases that we knew about. So the next step was to collect data and iterate. We had the service open in Finland in Finnish for a 10 months period as a pilot, and everybody who found out could report to us. We would go through all the cases, answer them, tag the data with necessarily crime tags, as we call them, and see what could we do with this data. So step 3, find a suitable machine learning model and train. So when we had gathered all this data, it was time to look for machine learning models and NLP pipelines that was out there that we could use. The struggle was that even with the very, very good data, natural language processing or natural language understanding is very, very hard. And Finnish language is even harder. We are only 5.5 million people in Finland, of which around about 5 million people speak actually Finnish. So it's a small language, very different from English, and there weren't that many possibilities to lematize stuff or focus on the structure of the language. And since most of our users were teenagers, they are using very funny language or a teenage language that is, it differentiates from the language that is spoken by adults, that is written, and they come up with all these new words all the time, mixing up English, mixing up other languages. I was able to distinguish that, for example, Starspace from Facebook research worked very well with the data that we had, but with the trial and error, looking through the data, going through it, reading the cases, making the models, we were able to select the best one and start working on how to integrate that to the system. Because obviously you know that a machine learning model just solely by itself doesn't do anything. You have to integrate and deploy it to the use. So step 4, deploy models and integrate to tools. As I said, we have 3 different models deployed to our system. The first one is crime detector, the second one is optimal response library, and the third one is trauma detector. So what does crime detector do? That's very simple, detects crime. So based on the text that the end user or the victim is inserting or giving us, we are tagging the data automatically with crime tags or crime labels. It could be harassment, it could be defamation, it could be child sexual abuse, it could be disseminating personal information or whatnot. We have together 16 different tags in use at the moment. Talking about the optimal response library, so that is the tool that creates a draft of the survival kit that is sent to the user or to the victim. So we combine with machine learning bits and pieces from old responses that we have already successfully sent to the users and create a draft for the survival kit. This way, the lawyers and psychologists don't have to write everything from the scratch, and we can use the expertise not in their head, but in the machine to fasten up the process. Our newest tool is Trauma Detector. So basically, looking at the different words that the victims are using, which detect what kind of trauma they might have experienced. Are they shocked? Are they just angry, or are they really in need of help, or do they need more psychological support? And this helps our service team, so the psychologists and lawyers, to give the best possible answer to the victim. Here you can see our crime detector in practice. There's a screenshot of it. So as I said, we don't do anything with the machine learning model if it's not integrated somewhere. And a lawyer cannot use a machine learning model if it's stored in a S3 bucket in Amazon. But what we did was to do this kind of user interface where you can insert whatever text, usually the victim's text, and then get the crime tags. So here, for example, you can choose a country of legislation. We have Finland here. Then describe what has happened to you in social media as precisely as possible. I have inserted here, my ex-boyfriend is sharing nude photos of me without my permission. So based on our knowledge of all the cases in our database, this machine learning model is predicting that this, quite rightly, is dissemination of information violating personal privacy. The same model is implemented to our case handling tool, so our lawyers and psychologists don't have to go flip through different apps. But this was the first draft of a tool for people to use. When we have a new case coming in, Alex has submitted his report about classmates bullying him and trying to spread the picture in Snapchat. So whenever the case is submitted to our system, the engine, we call it, will fetch the crime tags for that case based on the previous cases, and also a draft of the response is generated, and then we are highlighting different kind of words that Alex has been using, describing how he feels about this. Step 5, iterate and upgrade. As you know, no machine learning model is ready ever, or isn't perfect ever really. And we need to iterate and retrain and correct the data, clean the data, maybe change the model, change the system all the time, be alert. Especially now that we are scaling for other countries, we also need to use in advantage what we have already, so the data and the knowledge and the models. Last fall we opened the service in Sweden, and creating a separate model for Swedish language for Swedish legislation would have meant to do the whole process from the scratch. So creating the framework, collecting the data and iterating, start to look for the models, and so on and so forth. What we did was to implement a language agnostic model, so we could use the Finnish language and the Finnish experience. Here you can see the machine learning development that we have done so far and a roadmap on a very high level. As I said, company was established 2017 in the fall. 2018, after doing all the work with the framework and the data, we had the first automatic interviewer in place, and also the first crime detector. It was based, the model of a crime detector was based on 500 solved cases in Finland in Finnish. We had already then 16 different crime tags. We used, for example, TFD vectorizer to make the sentences or the text imported to a machine readable format, and then we used, for example, MLB classifier. 2019, we implemented a second crime detector 2.0. That was based on 1,000 solved cases in Finland, so we got in a year more than 500 cases in. Really the space of different crimes didn't expand. It was those 16 different crime tags that we came across with already then. And then this phase we updated the model to star space. When working with the star space, we noticed that particularly in Finnish language, it doesn't make any sense to lematize stuff, because Finnish language works in a very different way than English. So this was a very surprising thing, because in the natural language processing you usually take a text, lematize it, and then make a model of it. But in this case that was actually making the predictions worse. Now we're living 2020. We have yet another crime detector in place. As I said, we implemented the language agnostic process. So we're using actually, again, Facebook research laser component that actually fits all the languages in the same space. So before we had one space for one language, now it's the same space for all the languages. It works amazingly good. I didn't believe it at first, but it works, at least in Finnish and Swedish. This model, again, based on yet another plus 500 solved cases in Finland and in Sweden, in Finnish and Swedish. Still the same, we had a couple of more crime tags from Sweden, since they have a little bit different legislation than us. And as I said, we're using laser and Keras and then the TensorFlow models. Going forward, we want to scale this service even further, which means that we need to adopt more languages, more countries, and also make the services that will answer with the crime tags and with the response generator faster and more precise. At SomeBuddy we want to ensure safety without compromising connectivity. So especially at these times when we have all been working remotely, far away from our loved ones, far away from our nice colleagues, social media and digital tools are more important than ever. And we don't want to compromise the connectivity, but we want it to be a safe space. We want to create a new age of social media and provide access to justice to 2 billion social media users by 2025. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great pleasure to give this talk. I hope to see you at the comment section.